The evening lights of downtown Atlanta shimmered across the glass walls of La Verna, one of the most talked-about restaurants in the city. The smell of roasted salmon and seared steak filled the air. Inside, jazz music hummed softly beneath the low chatter of diners dressed in elegance. It was the kind of place where people came not just to eat, but to be seen. Behind the counter, a tall, lean man with calm brown eyes adjusted his black apron and straightened his collar. His name was Marcus Reed. To the unknowing eye, he looked like an ordinary waiter, humble, quiet, polite. But what no one knew was that Marcus owned this place. Every inch of the polished floor, every golden chandelier, every signature recipe, was his creation. But tonight, he didn't come as the owner. He came undercover. He wanted to see how his new staff treated customers, and how customers treated them in return. It was something he did every few months, dress like one of his employees, serve tables, and observe. But he wasn't ready for this night. Because on this night, he would meet people who would look at his skin, his silence, and his apron, and decide he wasn't worth respect. The dinner rush had just begun when Marcus noticed a group of 4 walking in, 2 men, 2 women, dressed in business attire, laughing loudly. They looked around impatiently before one of them, a tall man with a slick suit and arrogance written across his face, snapped his fingers at the hostess. "Reservation for Williams," he said. "We don't wait." The hostess smiled politely. "Of course, sir. Right this way." Marcus watched as they were seated near the window. The man looked around, unimpressed. "This the best you've got? I thought this place was supposed to be high-end." The woman next to him rolled her eyes. "Relax, Devin. Let's just eat." Marcus sighed, picked up his notepad, and headed over. "Good evening," he said with his usual warmth. "Welcome to La Verna. My name is Marcus, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man, Devin Williams, looked up at him slowly. "You the waiter?" "Yes, sir." He smirked. "Didn't expect to see one of you in a place like this." The table went silent. Marcus felt the sting but kept his composure. "Would you like to start with red or white wine, sir?" Devin leaned back, pretending to think. "You know what? Surprise me. I'm sure you know your grape juice or whatever." The group laughed. Marcus smiled faintly, nodded, and walked away. Inside, though, his chest tightened. He'd faced that kind of tone before, condescending, coated in humor but dripping with disrespect. He walked back to the bar, keeping his voice calm. Table 14, Cabernet Sauvignon, vintage 2018. The bartender, Shauna, noticed his tight jaw. "You good?" she whispered. Marcus exhaled. "Yeah. Just another night." She nodded knowingly. "You've got more patience than me." When Marcus returned with the wine, Devin was already complaining about the table lighting, the chairs, the temperature. "Y'all really call this fine dining?" he said loudly, looking around as if hoping someone important was listening. "Man, this ain't no Ruth's Chris." Marcus poured the wine carefully. "Is that enough, sir?" Devin looked at the bottle. "You sure you know how to do that? Don't spill it on my jacket." Marcus's hand stayed steady. "I'll be careful, sir." But before he could set the bottle down, Devin grinned and added, "Man, I bet you're working hard for that tip, huh? You probably got a cousin in the back washing dishes." The group burst into laughter again. Marcus paused for a moment, then smiled lightly. "I just like serving people well," he said, keeping his dignity. Devin's date leaned in. "You don't have to talk to him like that, babe." "Nah," Devin said, waving her off. "It's fine. He's used to it." That line, "he's used to it," cut deep. Marcus walked away quietly, reminding himself why he was doing this. He wanted to understand his restaurant through the eyes of those who worked for him. But tonight, he was learning more about the eyes of those who dined there. An hour later, the food was served, perfectly plated, steaming with flavor. Marcus brought out the dishes himself. "Here you go, ma'am." Pan-seared halibut with lemon butter sauce. He turned to Devin. "And for you, sir, medium-rare ribeye with truffle mashed potatoes." Devin smirked. "Finally. Let's see if it's worth what they're charging." He took one bite, then shrugged. It's okay. I've had better." Marcus nodded, unfazed. "I'll let the chef know, sir." "You do that," Devin said, leaning back smugly. "And tell him next time, maybe don't overcook it." "Oh wait, you're probably the one who cooked it, huh?" Marcus kept his calm again. "No, sir. But I'll pass your feedback along." He turned to leave when Devin's friend, a shorter man named Todd, whispered loudly, "Bro, he looks like he just got off a shift at Waffle House." Marcus heard it. Everyone did. He stopped walking, glanced back, and for the first time, his eyes held theirs. Calm, steady, but piercing. "I hope you enjoy your evening," he said quietly. Then he walked away. At the bar, Shauna approached him again. "You gonna let them talk to you like that?" Marcus smiled faintly. "You ever heard the saying, a lion doesn't need to tell you he's a lion?" She chuckled. "You're too wise for this job." He smiled. Maybe. But inside, he was thinking of something else. Something deeper. See, Marcus had grown up in the South, raised by a mother who worked 3 jobs and taught him that pride doesn't feed you, but grace opens doors. He built this restaurant from nothing. People had laughed at him when he said he'd own one of the finest spots in Atlanta. But he proved them wrong, quietly, patiently. And now, watching Devin Williams treat him like dirt, Marcus knew one thing for sure: people still judged worth by what you wore, not by who you were. But what Devin didn't know was that tonight, his arrogance would come back around full circle. Because Marcus wasn't just taking orders, he was watching. And soon, everyone in that restaurant would see who he really was. That night, as the group finished eating, Devin snapped his fingers again. "Hey, waiter. Check, please." Marcus walked over calmly. "Yes, sir." "Right away." When he handed over the bill, Devin whistled. "Man, y'all proud of your prices, huh?" He pulled out his card, tossed it on the tray without looking. "Here. Don't mess it up." Marcus looked down. It was a corporate platinum card, Williams & Tate Investments. He smiled faintly. "I'll be right back, sir." He walked to the POS counter, ran the card through, and as the machine beeped, something flickered in his mind. He'd heard of Williams & Tate before, a real estate firm that had once tried to buy this building from him 2 years ago. They'd lowballed him, saying he couldn't afford to keep the property. He smiled to himself. Fate had a strange sense of humor. When he brought the card back, Devin was still smirking. "You didn't scratch it, did you?" Marcus placed it gently on the table. "Not at all, sir." Devin scribbled a small tip, barely 5%. "There you go. Don't spend it all in one place." Marcus smiled politely. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate your kindness." Devin laughed as he stood. "You're welcome, my man." But Marcus didn't flinch. He just said softly, "You will." Devin paused. "What?" Marcus smiled again. "You'll see." As they left, Marcus stood by the counter, watching them go. Shauna came over. "You sure you're not gonna say anything?" Marcus chuckled. "Tomorrow's Friday. The investors' dinner's tomorrow night. Shauna's eyes widened. You mean? He nodded slowly. Yeah. And guess who's on the guest list? Devin Williams. Her jaw dropped. You serious? Marcus's smile turned sharp but calm. Oh, I'm very serious. He took off his apron, folded it neatly, and looked out at the city lights through the glass wall. Tomorrow, he whispered, the waiter gets to host the table. The next evening arrived with the same city hum, the same glittering skyline, but the energy inside La Verna was different, charged, focused, alive. Every waiter moved with precision, the kitchen buzzed in perfect rhythm, and soft piano music set a classy tone. This wasn't a regular night. It was the investors' dinner, a quarterly event where La Verna's top partners, investors, and special guests gathered for fine dining, networking, and new opportunities. The event was hosted by none other than Marcus Reed, the mysterious yet admired owner of the restaurant. But tonight, most people didn't even know what Marcus looked like. He preferred to stay behind the scenes. He didn't flaunt his wealth, didn't post about his success, and rarely appeared in public photos. His quiet confidence kept people guessing. That's why Devin Williams had no idea that the waiter he insulted last night was the man whose name was signed on every employee's paycheck. As the evening began, Marcus stood in his private office upstairs, looking out through the tinted glass down to the main floor. He wore a fitted black suit now, tailored perfectly, his posture confident and composed. No apron. No notepad. Just presence. On his desk lay a leather folder with the guest list. His eyes scanned it until he saw the name. Devin Williams, Williams & Tate Investments. Marcus smiled faintly. Right on time. He looked at his reflection in the glass, straightened his tie, and said quietly, let's make this a night to remember. Downstairs, Shauna and the rest of the staff prepared the tables, gleaming with crystal glasses and white linen. The main dining area had been reserved exclusively for the event. 30 of Atlanta's wealthiest professionals gathered in one place. At precisely 7 p.m., the guests began arriving. The chatter grew, glasses clinked, laughter filled the air. Devin walked in with that same confident swagger, wearing a designer suit and holding a drink he'd probably brag about. He was talking to another investor, his voice loud enough for everyone around to hear. I'm telling you, man, half these so-called black-owned spots don't last. You gotta have real money behind you. I might buy one just for fun. Marcus heard that as he descended the stairs. The room quieted slightly when they saw him, tall, elegant, composed. His presence had weight, even though he said nothing. He walked straight to the center table, where the microphone waited. Good evening, everyone, he began, his voice deep and calm. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to welcome you to La Verna, a dream built on patience, struggle, and faith. The guests applauded softly. Marcus continued, tonight isn't just about fine food. It's about connection, about remembering that respect is the foundation of every business that lasts. He glanced briefly toward Devin, who was sipping his drink and half listening. Then Marcus smiled. Please, enjoy your evening. Dinner will be served shortly. As Marcus moved through the crowd, shaking hands and greeting familiar faces, a few whispered to one another. That's the owner? He looks so young. Didn't even know he was black. Marcus was used to those comments. He'd learned to let them roll off. But when he turned, he came face to face with Devin Williams, who was mid-sentence, laughing with another investor. Man, I came here last night, and the service was terrible. Can you believe one of the waiters tried to lecture me about wine? Like, stick to serving plates, bro. Marcus's expression stayed neutral. Mr. Williams, he said warmly, extending his hand. Glad you could make it tonight. Devin turned, startled for a moment. Thanks. You are Marcus Reed, he replied smoothly. Owner of La Verna. The air shifted. Devin blinked, the name barely processing at first. Then his hand froze midair. Wait, you're the owner? Marcus smiled politely. That's right. For a second, Devin tried to hide his discomfort. Oh. Nice place. We were just talking about it last night, actually. I heard, Marcus said gently. I hope your waiter treated you well. Devin's jaw tightened. Yeah, he was fine. Marcus tilted his head slightly, his tone still calm but his eyes sharp. That's good to hear. I care a lot about how my guests are treated. Of course, Devin said quickly, trying to laugh it off. You got a great team here. Marcus nodded. Yes. Especially one waiter I met last night. He handled himself with a lot of grace. Devin forced a smile. Yeah. I think I remember him. Marcus leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. I'm sure you do. Then he turned and walked away. The rest of the dinner went on smoothly, at least for most of the guests. Devin, however, couldn't focus. He felt the burn of embarrassment crawl up his neck every time he caught Marcus's calm, watchful eyes. The meal was served, roasted duck, garlic potatoes, champagne. The crowd loved it. Every dish was perfect. Halfway through, one of the senior investors, Mrs. Patterson, stood up to make a toast. I'd like to commend the man behind this beautiful restaurant, she said, lifting her glass. Marcus Reed, one of the youngest successful restaurateurs in the city. I've watched him grow this place from an old building into something truly special. Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. Marcus nodded respectfully. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. But I owe it to everyone here, and to my staff. They're the heart of this restaurant. He glanced again at Devin, whose fake smile was barely holding up. Then Marcus continued, his tone steady but purposeful. You know, last night, I spent time working as a waiter here. I do it from time to time, just to understand what my staff goes through. The room murmured with surprise. Devin froze. Marcus's voice stayed calm. It reminds me that respect shouldn't depend on what someone wears or what job title they hold. Because you never know who you're talking to, or what they've built. The crowd grew quiet. Even the clinking glasses stopped. Marcus let that moment linger, then smiled. Anyway, tonight's about good food and good company. Enjoy yourselves. The applause returned, but this time, Devin didn't clap. His face was pale, his eyes down. Later, when dinner ended and guests mingled over dessert, Devin quietly approached Marcus near the bar. Hey, man, he said, lowering his voice. About last night? Marcus turned, polite as ever. Yes? Devin shifted uncomfortably. Look, I didn't realize who you were. I was just joking around. You know how it is. Marcus's expression didn't change. No, I don't think I do. Devin sighed. Come on, man. Don't take it personal. I was just messing. Marcus's voice dropped slightly, firm but composed. You disrespected me. You disrespected one of my staff. And you did it because you thought you could. Devin's mouth opened, but no words came out. Marcus continued, That's the problem, Mr. Williams. People think money gives them the right to treat others like they're beneath them. But respect is free, and it says more about you than the size of your wallet ever will. The silence was thick. Even the bartender paused what she was doing. Devin swallowed hard. You're right, he muttered. I messed up. Marcus nodded. You did. But I'll tell you what, everybody deserves a second chance. You want to fix it? Treat people better. Because the next waiter you mock might be the one signing your contracts. Devin looked at him for a long second, then nodded slowly. Understood. Marcus gave a faint smile. Good. Now, enjoy your dessert. Then he turned away, calm, composed, leaving Devin standing there, silenced, humbled, changed. That night, as the last guests left and the music faded, Shauna found Marcus in his office again. She grinned. You really let him sweat tonight. Marcus chuckled softly. I didn't have to. The truth did all the work. She laughed. You always got a quote ready, huh? He smiled, looking out the window again. My mama used to say, when you rise, don't forget to stay kind, but don't ever let kindness make you small. Shauna nodded. She raised you right. Marcus turned back, his tone gentle but proud. She did. And I'll make sure every person who walks into this restaurant learns the same lesson, no matter how rich, no matter how loud. The next morning, social media buzzed. Photos from the dinner filled Instagram and LinkedIn. Incredible night at La Verna hosted by Marcus Reed. Powerful message about respect from a humble entrepreneur. Even Devin Williams posted a story. Last night I learned something real, never underestimate anyone. Respect goes a long way. Shout out to Marcus Reed for setting the standard. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As Marcus stood at the front of the empty restaurant later that morning, sunlight pouring through the glass, he smiled quietly to himself. He had no need for revenge or applause. Just justice, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the tables had turned, both literally and figuratively. He picked up a towel, wiped one of the tables himself, and whispered, back to work. The next day, the morning light cut through the tall windows of La Verna like soft gold. The restaurant was quiet, no jazz, no chatter, just the gentle hum of the refrigerators and the sound of Marcus's shoes against the floor. He walked slowly between the tables, checking every setting, every napkin fold. For most people, last night would have been a victory worth celebrating. But for Marcus Reed, it wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about remembering why he built this place in the first place. He paused by the table where Devin Williams had sat just 24 hours earlier. The same chair. The same view. Only now, it was empty. He pulled out the chair and sat down. For a moment, he let his mind drift, not to the dinner, not to the humiliation or the redemption, but to where it all began. Marcus was just a kid then, barely 17, lanky, and full of dreams too big for his zip code. He lived in a small apartment with his mother, Lorraine Reed, a woman who carried exhaustion and grace in equal measure. She worked the breakfast shift at a diner on Peachtree Street, flipping pancakes and pouring coffee for customers who barely looked her in the eye. But every night, when she got home, she still found time to ask Marcus about his day. Did you eat? She'd say, dropping her purse by the door. Yeah, Mama. And your homework? Done. Good. She'd smile, that tired but proud smile. Then keep doing better than me. That was Lorraine's way, always teaching, always pushing, even when she had nothing left to give. Marcus got his first job at that same diner when he turned 18, washing dishes in the back, his apron always soaked, his hands cracked from detergent. But he didn't mind. He loved being close to food. He'd peek through the swinging kitchen doors, watching the chef plate meals, the way a sprinkle of parsley could turn something simple into something special. He started asking questions, staying late to learn from the cooks, scribbling notes in a little black notebook. Recipes. Techniques. Business ideas. The owner, a gruff man named Mr. Jenkins, noticed. Kid, you got fire in your eyes. Jenkins told him one night, wiping his hands on a towel. But fire won't keep you fed unless you learn how to run the stove and the business. Marcus nodded. Yes, sir. I'm trying. Don't try, Jenkins said. Learn. Watch. Then do it better than me. That stuck with him. For years, Marcus worked every position in that diner: busboy, line cook, server, manager. He saved every dollar he could. When friends were buying sneakers or cars, Marcus was buying cookbooks and studying menus from restaurants he couldn't afford to eat in. He'd walk through downtown Atlanta on weekends, staring through the glass of fine dining spots like the Grove or Marseilles, dreaming. He told his mama one night, "One day, I'm gonna own a place like that." Lorraine laughed softly. "Baby, that's big talk." "I mean it," he said. "I'm not just gonna work there. I'm gonna build it." She smiled, kissed his forehead. "Then promise me one thing: when you do, make sure the people who work for you feel seen. Too many folks forget where they came from when they make it." Marcus never forgot those words. Years passed. He attended culinary school on a partial scholarship, worked part-time to survive. There were nights he slept in his car, too proud to ask for help. But he kept moving. At 28, he landed a job as head chef in a mid-tier restaurant downtown. Within 3 years, he had turned that place around, reviews soared, profits doubled. But when it came time for ownership talks, the investors smiled and said, "You've done well, Marcus, but we're not ready for that level of partnership." Translation: they didn't want him at the table. He left that job with nothing but savings, a few loyal colleagues, and his mother's faith. It took everything: his 401k, a small business loan, and a leap of faith, to buy an old rundown property on Broad Street. Most people thought he was crazy. The place was falling apart, with broken tiles and faded walls. But Marcus saw more than bricks and dust. He saw a future. And that's how La Verna was born. Marcus blinked, shaking off the memory. He looked around his restaurant now, gleaming, beautiful, alive. The same walls that were once cracked now held art. The same air that once smelled of decay now carried laughter and garlic butter. He whispered softly, "You did it, Mama." Just then, the sound of footsteps approached. "Morning, boss," Shauna said, carrying a clipboard. "Sorry to interrupt your memory moment." Marcus smiled. "You always know." "I've been working here long enough," she said. "You get that look sometimes, the one that says you're remembering where you came from." He nodded. "Gotta remember. That's what keeps me grounded." Shauna sat across from him. "You know, I saw that post from Devin Williams this morning." Marcus raised a brow. "The one about respect?" "Yeah. He even tagged the restaurant. Said you taught him something." Marcus chuckled softly. "Well, maybe he did learn something. Life has a funny way of humbling people." "Guess so," she said. "But between you and me, that speech you gave last night? Phew." She fanned herself playfully. "That hit deep." Marcus smiled. "It wasn't a speech. It was the truth. People forget how easy it is to be kind." Shauna nodded. "Not everyone gets that. Especially in business." "That's why I do what I do," Marcus said. "Not just for the food, but for the message. If one man walks in here and leaves thinking twice about how he treats people, that's a win." Later that day, Marcus drove out to a small suburban neighborhood, quiet, clean, lined with oak trees. He parked outside a modest house and walked to the door with a bouquet of white lilies in hand. When the door opened, an older woman smiled, her face lighting up like the morning sun. "Well, look who's here," she said. "My favorite son." Marcus grinned. Your only son. Lorraine laughed, opening the door wider. You always gotta correct me. They hugged. Her embrace still carried that same warmth he remembered as a kid. Inside, the living room smelled of home-cooked stew and lavender. Marcus sat down, glancing around the room at photos of his younger self on the wall. Lorraine sat across from him, studying his face. You look tired, baby. I'm fine, Mama. Just been busy. Busy feeding people who can't even say thank you, she said knowingly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You saw the video? She smiled. Of course. It's all over social media. My boy out here teaching lessons in humility. He laughed softly. That's not what I was trying to do. I know, she said, her tone softening. But sometimes, God puts us in positions to remind folks what decency looks like. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't shame that man. You just showed him who you are. Marcus leaned back, nodding. It's funny. Last night, I kept thinking about you. About the diner. About how you used to tell me, never let pride make you cruel. Lorraine reached over and patted his hand. And you didn't. That's what made the lesson stick. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. Finally, Lorraine smiled. You know what I think? What? She pointed a finger at him playfully. I think it's time you stop hiding. No more pretending to be just a waiter. You worked too hard to play small. Marcus chuckled. You sound like Shauna now. Well, listen to her, she said. And listen to me. You've earned your seat. Don't be afraid to sit at the head of the table. Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. Lorraine grinned. I'm always right. They both laughed, the tension melting away. As Marcus drove back to the city that evening, he watched the skyline glow in the distance. He thought about all the people who had walked through his restaurant's doors, some kind, some cruel, some broken, some proud. He thought about the ones who judged him, who underestimated him, who saw only his skin and not his soul. And he thought about the lesson he'd learned over and over again: power doesn't come from putting others down. It comes from lifting yourself with grace. When he returned to La Verna, the restaurant was preparing for another busy night. He walked through the kitchen, greeted every staff member by name, and made sure everyone felt valued. As he stepped into the main floor, a young waiter named Jordan stopped him. Hey, Mr. Reed, Jordan said nervously. Can I ask you something? Of course. Jordan hesitated. When people talk down to you, like they did to me last week, how do you stay so calm? How do you not let it get to you? Marcus thought for a moment. Then he said quietly, because I know who I am. The moment you know your worth, their words lose power. Jordan nodded slowly, his shoulders relaxing. Marcus smiled. Let them talk. You just keep serving excellence. One day, they'll realize they were talking to someone greater than they thought. Jordan smiled back. Thanks, boss. Marcus patted his shoulder. Anytime. That night, as the dinner rush filled the air again, Marcus stood near the kitchen doors, watching his team work in harmony. The jazz played softly. Glasses clinked. Laughter filled the room. He smiled, whispering under his breath, "This is what we built, Mama." A place of grace. 2 weeks later, La Verna had become the talk of the city. The story of the humble waiter who turned out to be the owner spread like wildfire across social media and business circles. People called it a lesson in humility. Influencers filmed videos outside the restaurant. Journalists called for interviews. Local news stations ran the headline. Atlanta restaurateur teaches powerful lesson in respect. Marcus Reed's name was suddenly everywhere. But Marcus wasn't chasing fame, he was protecting peace. He didn't want the story to become a spectacle. For him, it wasn't about the viral moment, it was about the message. Still, when the phone rang that morning and Shauna poked her head into his office with wide eyes, he knew something new was coming. "Boss," she said, waving a sleek envelope. "You got a letter, from Williams and Tate Investments." Marcus looked up, calm as ever. "Let me guess. Devin?" Shauna grinned. "Exactly. Says it's urgent." He took the envelope, slit it open, and pulled out a crisp letter printed on heavy white paper. The first line made him raise an eyebrow. "Mr. Reed, after our enlightening encounter, I've been reflecting deeply on how we conduct business, and how we treat people. I'd like to make things right." Devin went on to explain that his firm wanted to partner with La Verna to expand its brand across Atlanta, possibly nationwide. The offer was bold, profitable, tempting. But Marcus wasn't sure if it was sincere. He leaned back in his chair, reading it again. The tone was humble, almost apologetic. But Marcus knew how fast people could switch when they saw opportunity. Shauna watched him carefully. "You thinking of taking it?" He exhaled. "I'm thinking of listening." Doesn't hurt to hear him out. "Just be careful," she warned. "People like him, sometimes they just want to buy what they couldn't break." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah. I've seen that before." That Friday afternoon, Marcus met Devin at a downtown rooftop lounge overlooking the skyline. The air was crisp, the city alive below them. Devin stood as Marcus approached, extending his hand. "Marcus. Glad you came." Marcus shook it firmly. "You said you wanted to talk business." "Absolutely," Devin said, motioning for him to sit. "Listen, man. I owe you an apology. What I said that night, that wasn't me at my best." Marcus nodded politely. "I appreciate that." Devin sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Truth is, you made me think. I've been running this firm for years, and I never really looked at how I treated people. You embarrassed me, in a good way." Marcus smiled slightly. "I didn't do anything special. You embarrassed yourself. I just let the truth show." Devin chuckled softly. "Fair enough." Then he leaned forward, sliding a folder across the table. "Here's the deal. My firm wants to partner with La Verna. We'll invest, help you open 3 more locations across Georgia, each one under your name. You'll keep full creative control, and we'll handle expansion." Marcus glanced at the documents. The numbers were impressive. The reach was huge. It was everything most entrepreneurs dreamt of. But something in his gut said wait. He looked up. "Why me?" Devin hesitated, then said honestly, "Because your story's hot right now. People respect you. Partnering with you would show that we're changing. We need that image." There it was, the truth behind the flattery. Marcus leaned back, quiet for a long moment. "So this is about image?" Devin shook his head quickly. No, not just image. Look, I really respect you. I mean it. You've built something beautiful, and we could help you make it bigger." Marcus studied him. Devin was trying, he could see that. But change that comes from guilt doesn't last. He closed the folder slowly. "I appreciate the offer. I really do. But I built La Verna with heart, not headlines. If I expand, it has to be for the right reasons." Devin frowned. "This is the right reason. Growth, money, reach." Marcus interrupted gently. "Respect, Devin. That's the right reason. Everything else follows that." Devin leaned back, frustrated. Man, you really don't play the game, do you? Marcus smiled calmly. I play it differently. And that's why I win. Later that night, Marcus sat alone in his restaurant after closing. The chairs were up, the lights dim. He held the contract in his hands, staring at the signatures that never would be. He wasn't angry, just thoughtful. Because he knew something most people didn't: growth without purpose is just greed in disguise. He thought of his mother, of her hands cracking from long shifts, of her smile when he opened La Verna for the first time. She hadn't raised him to chase money. She'd raised him to chase meaning. He whispered softly, I didn't build this place to be bought. The next morning, Marcus called a meeting with his team. The entire staff gathered, servers, cooks, dishwashers, all looking at him with respect. He stood at the front, no suit this time, just his rolled-up sleeves and a genuine smile. I want y'all to know something, he began. We had an offer to expand this restaurant, big money, big names. But I turned it down. A murmur spread through the room. Marcus raised a hand. Not because I don't believe in us, but because I believe in why we started. This place isn't about fame or fortune. It's about dignity. It's about showing the world what we can build when we work with respect. Shauna grinned proudly. That's the boss we know. Marcus continued, we're not just serving food here. We're serving a message. Every plate, every smile, every table, that's us reminding the world that grace has power. Applause filled the room. One of the young cooks shouted, we got you, boss. Marcus smiled. Good. Now let's make tonight's service one to remember. That evening, the restaurant was packed. Among the crowd was a familiar face, Devin Williams again, this time quietly sitting at a corner table with his fiancée. Marcus saw him but said nothing. After their meal, Devin walked up to him by the counter. Hey, he said quietly. Just wanted to say, your decision yesterday. I respect it. Marcus nodded. You sure? Devin smiled faintly. Yeah. You're right. Some things aren't for sale. I'll admit, I didn't get it before. But I do now. Marcus extended his hand. Then we're good. Devin shook it firmly. We're good. And for what it's worth, I'm changing how I run my firm. Starting with how we treat the people we work with. Marcus smiled. Then maybe that dinner wasn't just for you. Maybe it was for everyone watching. Devin chuckled. Guess so. He left quietly, and for once, Marcus felt the lesson had truly sunk in. Later that night, Shauna approached Marcus again. So what now, boss? You really gonna stop at one restaurant? Marcus looked around, the laughter, the lights, the music. He smiled. No. I'm gonna expand, but my way. One location at a time. Each one built with people who believe in what we stand for. Respect and grace? Shauna asked. He nodded. Respect and grace. She grinned. Sounds like a brand already. Marcus laughed. Maybe it is. That weekend, an email arrived in Marcus's inbox from a non-profit organization that helped fund young black chefs and entrepreneurs. They'd seen his story online and wanted to partner, not for money, but to mentor and uplift others. Marcus's eyes softened as he read the message. This was the partnership that mattered. He replied immediately. I'd be honored. Let's help the next generation build something even better. That night, Marcus stood outside La Verna, looking at the glowing sign above the doors. The wind carried faint laughter from inside, the city lights reflecting off the glass. He thought about everything, the prejudice, the humiliation, the test, and the triumph. And he realized that life's real reward isn't being served respect, it's earning it by staying true to who you are. As he locked the doors, he whispered softly, "Grace always wins." Then he smiled, heading home under the city lights, ready for whatever came next. The morning sun rose over downtown Atlanta, spilling golden light across the street outside La Verna. Inside, Marcus stood at his favorite corner table, the same one where it had all started. The chairs were set, the napkins crisp, the scent of roasted garlic and herbs drifting from the kitchen. It had been 6 months since that unforgettable dinner. 6 months since the night a man tried to humiliate him in his own restaurant. And now, La Verna wasn't just a restaurant anymore, it was a movement. Every week, the place filled with customers who said they came not just for the food, but for what Marcus represented: quiet strength, dignity, and grace under fire. Shauna rushed in that morning, waving her phone. "Boss, you're not gonna believe this," she said, breathless. "You just got invited to the Atlanta Business Honors. They want to give you an award for leadership and community impact." Marcus blinked, half smiling. "You sure they got the right guy?" Shauna laughed. "You better believe it. They said you'll be sitting with the mayor and some big names in the industry." Marcus looked down, a little humbled. "I never asked for any of that." "Yeah," Shauna said softly, "and that's exactly why you're getting it." The night of the event, the ballroom shimmered with elegance, crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed tables, and the hum of Atlanta's elite. Marcus arrived in a sleek black tuxedo, not because he wanted to impress, but because he respected the occasion. Cameras flashed as he stepped in. Some recognized him instantly. "That's the guy from La Verna. The waiter who turned out to be the owner." Marcus smiled modestly and nodded, greeting a few guests before taking his seat near the stage. Halfway through the evening, the host stepped up to the podium. "Tonight," she said, her voice echoing across the hall, "we honor a man who taught this city something priceless, that respect is the finest dish anyone can serve." She paused, letting the words settle. This man faced humiliation not with anger, but with calm grace. He reminded us that true power doesn't shout, it stands tall in silence. The audience turned toward Marcus's table. He felt hundreds of eyes on him, but he didn't shrink. He stood slowly, his heart steady. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host said, smiling, "please welcome Mr. Marcus Reed." The room erupted in applause. Marcus walked to the stage, every step measured. When he reached the microphone, he paused, looking over the sea of faces. He could see Devin Williams in the crowd, sitting quietly in the back, clapping sincerely. Marcus smiled faintly. Then he began. "6 months ago, I was mistaken for a waiter in my own restaurant. I was insulted, mocked, and told I didn't belong where I stood. But instead of reacting with anger, I decided to let time and truth speak for me." The room was silent. He continued, voice calm but strong. "I didn't build La Verna to prove anything. I built it to remind people that dignity has no price tag, and that greatness doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes, it wears an apron." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd. Marcus went on, "What happened that night wasn't just about me. It was about every hard-working person who's been looked down on, every voice that's been dismissed because of the color of their skin or the job they do. To all of them, I say this: don't shrink yourself to fit someone else's comfort. Keep standing. Keep serving your best. Because one day, the same people who overlooked you will have to look up to you." The room broke into applause. People stood, clapping louder and louder until the sound filled the hall. Marcus smiled humbly and finished, "Respect is earned not by demanding it, but by embodying it. Thank you." He stepped back from the microphone, his eyes glistening as the applause roared like thunder. After the event, Marcus mingled with a few guests. Some thanked him, others asked for advice. But one handshake stood out. Devin Williams approached again, no arrogance this time, no slick charm. Just humility. "Marcus," he said, smiling. "Congratulations, man. You deserved every bit of that." Marcus returned the handshake firmly. "Appreciate that, Devin. How's business?" Devin chuckled. "Better. Different. I changed how I hire, how I talk to people." "You were right, it's not about image. It's about integrity." Marcus nodded. "Good. That's how you build something that lasts." Devin hesitated, then said quietly, "If you ever want to work together, on your terms this time, I'm here." Marcus smiled. "Maybe one day. But right now, I'm focused on growing from the inside out." Devin grinned. "Fair enough. Either way, you got my respect." And for the first time, Marcus believed him. Months passed, and La Verna opened a second location, this time in a community that had long been overlooked. Marcus made sure to hire locals, train young black chefs, and give opportunities to those who just needed someone to believe in them. The restaurant's motto, now printed on every wall and menu, read, "Respect served daily." Customers came not only for the food, but for the feeling. The environment Marcus created made people feel seen. He launched a scholarship fund for culinary students of color, mentoring them personally. Some of them even went on to start their own restaurants, carrying his philosophy forward. And through it all, Marcus never forgot where it began, the night someone mocked him for being just a waiter. One evening, as Marcus walked through the original La Verna location, he noticed a young waiter struggling to carry 3 plates. The kid stumbled, and a customer chuckled under their breath. Marcus stepped forward, helped him steady the tray, and said gently, "Don't let their laughter shake your balance, son. Keep your head high. You never know who's watching, or who you'll become." The young man nodded, smiling nervously. "Thanks, Mr. Reed." Marcus smiled back. "Call me Marcus. And remember, greatness often starts in an apron." That night, Marcus sat by the bar after closing, watching his staff laugh and clean up. The place was alive, every corner glowing with purpose. He took a sip of his tea and whispered to himself. They mocked the waiter, but the waiter served them something they'll never forget. He smiled, satisfied. In life, you'll meet people who judge you before they know your story. They'll laugh at your uniform, your title, your silence. But remember, real power doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up, does the work, and lets the results speak. Marcus Reed didn't just own a restaurant. He owned his dignity. He showed the world that respect is not demanded, it's earned through grace, patience, and truth. So the next time someone underestimates you, smile. Let them think they've got you figured out. Because when the truth comes to light, it'll speak louder than any insult ever could. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that greatness can come from the humblest places. And always remember, never look down on anyone. You might just be serving the owner. This is Buchi Grind, stories that keep you watching.